When we talk about beauty, we often think first of nature. It's easy to do even in these winter days. There is a beauty to the bareness of trees, reminding us of the cycle of life. Waking up this morning to the twinkle of ice on the branches was also beautiful, even if it kept me from being physically with you this morning. I often think that nature's role is in part to remind us that beauty exists, and it certainly does do that. But nature isn't the only thing that is beautiful. Beauty and our sense of it is deeper, bigger, almost too intangible to define. And so the philosopher George Santayana tried to define beauty in 1898, and he spilled a lot of ink trying. Santayana focused on the aesthetic of beauty and endeavored to separate it from psychology and religion, somewhat poorly in my opinion. Yet along the way, he landed on this definition written in the gendered language of his day. Beauty is a value that is not a perception of matter of fact or relation. It is an emotion, an affectation of our volitional and appreciative nature. An object cannot be beautiful if it give pleasure to nobody. A beauty to which all men were forever indifferent is a contradiction in terms. The value is positive. It is the sense of presence, of doing something good, or of its absence. So according to Santayana, something is beautiful if we appreciate it, if it appeals to us. And that probably explains why beauty is so subjective, at least that beauty we sense with our own eyes, ears, tongue, hands, and nose. I think a well-executed Jackson Pollock painting is beautiful. Others turn from its chaos. Some of you think olives are uniquely beautiful. I think they are an abomination unto my tongue. But it may also explain why capitalism has worked so hard to tell us what beauty is. If we all agree, then we're going to buy their products, which then sets up expectations, especially around body image and worth, which is a topic for another day. But even as we accept that we do take in beauty and judge beauty by our five senses, we know that there's more than just how it appeals to us. Our sense of beauty goes deeper. As White said in our reading, it is about a moment. The first bloom, the perfect phrase, the exquisite lyric, the taste that takes your breath away. We long to savor them because they are perfect for a moment, beautiful for a moment. And we know they are fleeting. Our top tier senses are just the start. I wonder if we do our sense of beauty a disservice when we lean into just five senses, because we know there are so many ways in which we sense beauty. Each of those top-tier senses is more complex. We sense a wide variety of things when we taste or view or hear or smell or touch. Something could be salty or in muted hues or tinny to the ear or smell like a rose or is rough in texture. But we also sense beauty through our senses of heat and proximity and hunger and hormones and space and curiosity and intuition and connection and, yes, our emotions. Every sensation involves deeper connections to the ways we interact with the world and how we interact with each other and how we interact with ourselves. So we sense beauty. It gives us pleasure. It appeals to us and has values and qualities that make it appealing. We don't need to ask why it appeals. As Santayana notes, to feel beauty is a better thing than to understand how we come to feel it. I mean, how many times have you been speechless at the beauty of something or someone, or struggled to describe it so others can imagine that beauty? And still, just sensing and noticing and feeling beauty isn't everything. I mean, what if our sense of beauty wasn't just about the many ways we sense and feel it, but also what it means? Can we make meaning out of beauty? Can we discern our work in the world through beauty? What if our sense of beauty led to something more holy? One of my favorite examples in universalism is the one Hosea Ballou offers to explain how God's love works. Ballou asks us to consider the child that has fallen into the mud. Of course, you clean them. But do you love the child because you cleaned them? Or did you clean them because you love them? So, following that, is something beautiful only something that's been cleaned or made presentable or gone through a makeover? Or do you see the potential underneath the grime, underneath the oppression, underneath the trauma, underneath the poverty, underneath all that keeps that child from shining all that the world's mud has caked onto them? Now, you might argue that it's empathy or compassion that leads you there, and you wouldn't be wrong. But I wonder if it is our sense of beauty that helps us be empathetic and compassionate, that we sense the beauty of a human being, a gentle tear, a soul crying for solace, a body aching for healing, a spirit longing to be free, and more. I wonder if it is our sense of beauty that sparks hope. I believe that a sense of deep, below the surface beauty, as subjective and volatile as it is actually the driving force for our work in the world. If we were a Christian church, I'd suggest that it's the thing in us that remembers the beauty of the unfallen Garden of Eden, and the driving forces to make the will of God on earth as it is in heaven manifest. But maybe that's not so far off. If instead of thinking about a perfect garden that we lost when Adam and Eve were banished from the garden for eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, what if we were to think about it like this? We can imagine the beloved community, what things would be like if we actually managed to love the hell out of this world, if we drew the circle of love so wide we didn't need a circle anymore. We can imagine, as John Lennon suggests, all the people living life in peace. Maybe that's the new Eden we long for. And it's not a bad way to think about and understanding our, and that's not a bad way to understand our sense of beauty. We can harness it as the driver of hope for a better future, the thing that compels us to goodness, the glimmer, the moment, the beauty that makes our work worthwhile and helps us maintain hope. So I'll put on my armchair history nerd hat to give you a couple examples of what I mean. In the closing years of the Cold War, the nation of Estonia was able to win their independence from the USSR, thus starting the mass exodus and the crumbling of the Soviet Union. This small Baltic country has a massive culture of singing in families, in schools, churches, but also in the streets, in organizations, in pubs. Anywhere people gather, they sing. Estonia maintains the largest collection of folk music in the world. And to celebrate their music, they've been holding a song festival every 5 years or so since 1869. Not surprisingly, and as we might know if we remember our history and our present, part of the aim of the Soviet Union was to turn everything they conquered into Russian things. So native histories, culture, language, even music were banned, taken over by Russian music and history and culture and language. The song festival called Lalapidu was excised of Estonian songs and filled with Russian propaganda. Now this went on from 1945 to the 100th anniversary of the festival in 1969, when they allowed in one Estonian song, which had been traditionally sung at the end of Lalapidu, a song whose lyrics were taken from a poem by Lydia Koidula that is central to their identity. It is as central to them as Emma Goldman's words, "Give me your tired, your poor," are to us. Muisa ma on minu arm, or Fatherland is my love, was sung to the over 100,000 people who gathered in Estonian, not Russian, composed by a beloved Estonian musician, Gustav Ernesaks. And it will be sung for you now by our choir.
Please rise in body or spirit for hymn number 326. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought she was going to, it has her after.
In that one beautiful moment, the Estonians heard the beauty contrasted against the militaristic starkness of the Russian program. They heard glimpses of their national heritage, their language, their melodies, their music, their hearts. Because of the beauty of this one song, and not just its loveliness, although it is indeed lovely, but the hope intrinsic in that beauty. Estonians remembered who they are and whose they are. Slowly, they reclaimed the beauty of their identity. And once Gorbachev loosened free speech regulations in the late 1980s, Estonians, predictably, spoke out and began fighting for their freedom. But more, they didn't just speak out, they sang out. Everywhere they greeted Russian troops with a smile and a song. They sang to these soldiers, these people meant to destroy them with tanks and guns. And the soldiers too would sense the beauty of these songs, these words, these people. And over again, there would be no bloodshed. In 1991, they were the first of the Soviet nations to become independent. As another former Soviet country is battling again under the presumption of the Russian right to ownership, we see again that amidst the fighting and destruction and war crimes being perpetrated against the Ukrainian people in this protracted invasion, the Ukrainians are finding ways to hold on to their identity through images and songs, many of which are coming through as TikTok collaborations and Instagram posts. But still, we see the beauty of this country and these people, and our compassion extends to them. This came into stark focus in May of 2022, just a few months after the invasion, at the 56th Eurovision Song Contest. Now, for the uninitiated, Eurovision is a song contest where European nations bring their best songs, as chosen by each country, to compete on the world stage. Over the years, winners have highlighted the best of each nation's culture, their best songwriters, and sometimes have spawned careers like for ABBA and Celine Dion. Sometimes they have just been fabulous, with spectacularly over-the-top music and costumes and performances. The Eurovision finalists receive two combined scores, the jury scores from each nation, the experts, and the combined public vote. In this year, 2022, there were some actually really good songs in the final, including Ukraine's, which landed in the top 10 of the jury score. And then the public vote came in with a record-smashing 95% of the public vote. The people saw the beauty of these singers from a war-torn country. They voted for a song, by the way, by the Kalush Orchestra, sung in Ukrainian, with wild costumes and instruments that recalled images of Ukrainian art and culture. You'd expect the song would have been some sort of pro-Ukraine protest anthem, but instead it was a song, a lullaby even, about the composer's mother, Stefania. In the song, which combines rock and rap and Ukrainian lullaby, the people sensed the beauty that this group was reminding the world of. That despite the war and despite the horrific nature of this invasion, there was still beauty worth fighting for. And the people responded. Ukraine won. And then the band members went back to their country to redon their uniforms and go back to the fighting. But the Ukrainian people kept responding, and late that fall, the band realized that the song had become a beacon of hope for the people of Ukraine. And so they released a special video, this one with images from the war still raging around them, with reminders that love and hope and beauty still exist. A sense of beauty doesn't mean the hard work is done. It means the hard work is worth doing. It means the hard work isn't in vain. We need that message more than ever. It is so hard to see beauty when so much is being pillaged and ravaged in our nation right now. Remember what White says, that beauty is an achieved state of both deep attention and self-forgetting. The self-forgetting of seeing, hearing, smelling, or touching that erases our separation, our distance, our fear of the other. Beauty invites us through entrancement to that fearful frontier between what we think makes us and what we think makes the world. Bringing beauty, finding beauty, sensing these moments of beauty matters. It is part of the joy we must hold on to as an act of resistance. If we are to actually resist tyranny, if we are actually to offer comfort and safety for the most vulnerable, if we are actually to draw the circle of love wide, if we are to actually turn our world away from hatred and destruction and embrace thriving and creation, if we are to actually build the beloved community, we have to continue and exercise and hone our sense of beauty, because that is what will win in the end.